Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit, where gears grind and headlines hit hard. John Deere has just announced it's shifting part of its U.S. manufacturing to Mexico, calling it a strategic expansion. But U.S. President Trump isn't buying it. He's blasting the move as betrayal and threatening a jaw-dropping 200% tariff on Mexican-built Deere imports. With America's farmers, lawmakers, and investors bracing for impact, this isn't just business, it's a full-blown economic flashpoint. So what triggered the shift, and what happens next? Buckle up, here are the 5 key insights behind this high-stakes machinery standoff. The trigger: why Deere is moving to Mexico. John Deere's $55 million investment in a new manufacturing facility in Monterrey, Mexico, set to begin production by 2026, marks more than a simple expansion. It's a strategic shift. The plant will produce mid-frame skid steer and compact track loaders, essential machines for small to mid-sized farms. So, what's driving the move? Deere cites rising U.S. labor costs, worker shortages, and supply chain congestion. Mexico, by contrast, offers significantly lower labor costs, an expanding skilled workforce, and easier access to high-growth ag markets in Latin America, places like Brazil, Argentina, and Colombia. Deere isn't alone. Industry peers like AGCO and CNH Industrial are also adjusting operations to stay lean amid inflation and lingering COVID-era disruptions. Deere says fewer than 5% of its North American operations will shift, with core equipment like harvesters staying in Iowa and Illinois. But that reassurance didn't soften the blow. The announcement came just as rural American plants face potential cutbacks, leaving many to question the company's loyalty. To critics, it felt like corporate strategy wrapped in betrayal. To Deere, it's just survival in a globalized world. But corporate survival wasn't the only story grabbing headlines. Trump's response made it a political storm. Trump fires back, tariffs on the table. Donald Trump wasted no time turning Deere's Mexico move into a political flashpoint. At a rally in Iowa, he declared, "If John Deere builds our machines elsewhere, they'll pay a 200% tariff to bring them back." It wasn't just bluster, it was a direct challenge to Deere's global strategy. For Trump, the issue isn't just economics, it's symbolism. Deere's shift represents, in his eyes, a betrayal of American manufacturing. His message? Keep jobs at home, or face the financial consequences. But a tariff that steep would hit more than just corporate profits. Farmers already strained by inflation and high interest rates could see equipment costs soar. Dealers, repair shops, and the broader supply chain would feel the ripple effects. Retaliation from Mexico and other trade partners could follow. Trump's allies in Congress backed him swiftly, with proposals to limit federal purchases of foreign-made farm equipment. Rural America is now debating whether these measures protect workers, or hurt the very communities they're meant to defend. This standoff highlights a deeper divide. Can tariffs revive domestic industry, or do they risk doing more harm than good? And just as the political pressure mounted, Deere's financial reality added more weight to the story. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. It helps this channel reach more vehicle enthusiasts and keeps you updated on industry moves that matter. Deere's revenue drop, dip or detour. John Deere's move to Mexico comes at a time when its finances are already under pressure. The latest quarterly report revealed a steep 35% revenue drop, falling short of Wall Street expectations. With commodity prices low and borrowing costs high, many farmers are delaying purchases, opting for used equipment or rentals. Sales in Deere's large-scale ag and precision segments are projected to fall by up to 20%. Meanwhile, the used market is surging. TractorZoom reported a 40% spike in large tractor listings, signaling a broader slowdown in new machinery demand. Despite the dip, Deere remains optimistic. The company expects up to $5.5 billion in net income for 2025 and is leaning into cost-cutting and automation. Investors appear to agree. After a brief stumble, the stock rebounded. Strategically, Deere is shifting its focus outward. Over half of its ag and turf exports now go to Canada, Europe, Brazil, and Australia, giving it room to operate globally even as domestic challenges mount. The company is walking a fine line, balancing political backlash at home with a broader push toward global efficiency. Whether that gamble pays off remains to be seen. But it's not just finances steering Deere's next chapter. Tech is playing an even bigger role in reshaping the company's future. Smart machines, silent jobs, Deere's push into automation. While tariff debates grab headlines, John Deere is quietly transforming farming through cutting-edge technology. The company is betting big on automation, rolling out autonomous tractors, precision sprayers, and AI-driven tools that promise smarter, leaner agriculture. Its headline innovation, the 8R autonomous tractor, can operate without a driver using GPS, LiDAR, and AI to navigate fields with pinpoint accuracy. Drones detect pest outbreaks, while cloud-based software adjusts spray patterns in real time, reducing waste and boosting yield. Powering all this is Deere's Operations Center, a digital dashboard farmers can use to monitor fleets, soil conditions, and equipment health straight from their phones. In Brazil, Deere is even bundling Starlink connectivity to reach remote farmland. But here's the catch: these machines don't care where they're built. Whether assembled in Iowa or Mexico, performance, not geography, is what matters. And with automation accelerating, the real disruption isn't offshoring, it's job loss. Oxford Economics projects 20 million manufacturing jobs could vanish by 2030 due to robotics. Deere isn't replacing Americans with Mexicans, it's replacing people with machines. The real question now, are we training workers fast enough for a future where tractors drive themselves? Still, What the public thinks of this shift may shape Deere's path just as much as the technology driving it. Divided fields, public perception, and political pressure. John Deere has long been a pillar of rural America, a trusted name etched into barns, fields, and generations of farmers. But after its Mexico move, that trust is showing cracks. Across farm forums, radio call-ins, and local town halls, opinions are split. Supporters say Deere is adapting to survive in a global economy. Critics argue it's abandoning the very workers and communities that built its legacy. One farmer bluntly asked, "Why Mexico and not Nebraska?" Political pressure is ramping up. Trump allies in Congress have introduced bills to restrict federal purchases of foreign-made ag equipment. Hearings on Deere's strategy are being discussed, and the administration is exploring tariff policies tied to domestic production. Meanwhile, Deere's lobbyists are pushing back, arguing that tariffs won't just squeeze corporate profits, they'll hit farmers hardest by driving up machinery costs during a time of rising global food demand. Deere, for now, isn't retreating. No apologies, no reversals, just a steady march forward. This isn't merely a dispute over factories, it's a deeper battle over what rural America should look like in a rapidly evolving world. And that leads us to the big picture, the deeper transformation that's quietly reshaping what American industry really means. Final drive, where tradition meets transformation. John Deere's decision to expand in Mexico didn't just trigger Trump's tariff threats, it threw a spotlight on a larger reckoning. This is more than one company's move. It's a collision course between economic evolution and the nostalgia of American manufacturing glory. One camp rallies for bringing jobs home. The other is doubling down on innovation and global reach. But can both coexist? Or are we watching the slow fade of the assembly line era? The answer may shape not only Deere's direction, but how rural America defines its future. Before you go, we want your take on this. Should companies like Deere be required to manufacture domestically, even at a financial loss? Do you see automation as a threat to jobs, or a necessary upgrade to keep farms alive? And finally, who do you think is more in touch with today's economy, Trump or Deere? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you see this issue from behind the wheel or the shop bench. Don't forget to subscribe to Piston Pundit, your ultimate pit stop for vehicle insights, industry shakeups, and no-nonsense analysis. More updates coming soon. Thanks for riding with us. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.
John Deere announced in July 2024 they are discontinuing their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and initiatives, also known as DEI. This decision follows a period of conservative backlash and online criticism, with the company citing a desire to ensure its activities tie directly to its business. So isn't that so fun? So you have John Deere dropping DEI, which means you can no longer hire people that you would qualify as quote-unquote DEI, which we basically know means everybody that's not an Aryan white person. But of course, the farmers and the white races, they thought that DEI, and it could have been other types of races too, as I'm learning, but they thought DEI was basically black people. And then people had to find out the hard way that, nope, DEI is not actually not for the quote-unquote blacks, because the government has never done anything to help black people. So even when they create programs that looks like it was created for black people, like affirmative action, etc., it actually is, we're actually the last ones on the list to get said programs. So they're ending up, when they ended DEI, they ended up, getting rid of probably all the black workers, who knows, and like other groups of people, women, LGBTQ, etc., etc. And then now they are saying they can no longer stay in America because they don't have enough, there's a labor shortage. They don't have enough people to work in their companies. And, they have, there are other reasons, but basically it's because, it's just the irony of it. You get rid of DEI and then you have like a labor shortage or not enough employees to do jobs at your company. And so then on the flip side, you also have the people who had this big push to fire or to get rid of anything that would potentially help black folks. They are now going to be without a job as well, because John Deere is leaving their area, their rural communities. So they're now crying, which, they love to do, even though they tell everyone else to stop crying, stop being a snowflake. That's what they are, because they're always projecting. They are now crying because they now no longer have John Deere as an employer, because they're going to Mexico. And isn't that so much poetic justice? So you're getting rid of DEI. These people that voted to get rid of DEI, like they've been giving a lot of push to John Deere's probably shareholders, what do you call it? Like activists who are racist, and they call themselves conservative, whatever. What are you conserving? Who knows? I guess jobs just for white people. But you have those racist groups that are fighting for John Deere to not hire people who aren't Aryan white people. But now you're going to Mexico where you're going to hire who? It's giving NAFTA all over again. Like you basically got rid of the job. You voted to get rid of the Mexicans, the Hispanic. We know who they really were voting to get rid of when they say immigration. They weren't talking about the white people there either, because they're bringing in white folks actually from South Africa. So you voted to get rid of the brown people, the black people that were, who were immigrants or whatever. And then you fight to get rid of people's jobs who weren't white, because apparently only people that get to succeed in America have to be white. But then your company leaves and ends up taking their business operations to the very place that you said, we're mad, deport them back to their country. And now that same group of people are going to get those jobs because John Deere is going to is basically John Deere's following them to their country. So again, this is just once more showing that, being ugly, hate does not benefit anyone in the long run. It's not a win. I actually now think about it and wonder if America was ever successful as a whole when only Aryan white people were succeeding in this country and everybody else was just made to suffer. And I'm pretty sure it was a big fat no, because that would have been a small percentage of people who was getting help, because they're not the majority when you put the full group of people together. When you have like the Hispanics, you have the Asians, you got the LGBTQ, you got, if you're lumping in women, you got black people, you got the immigrants. Like when you put all that together, then now the Aryan white people it's a very small group of people who are being allowed to succeed in this country outside of everyone else. So I definitely think that, also I forgot the Native Americans who were here before everybody. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, if you don't like other groups so much and you don't like diversity, just move to a predominantly white country or create your own island with just white folks that are allowed to live on that island. No one's going to miss you or care. And I wish that we could deport these racists to Alcatraz or one of these, awful places, because they are treasonous. But, it's just crazy. It's just the irony of it all, and I'm here for all of it. So let's get back to the original programming.
John Deere, you motherfuckers.
Hell yeah, brother, put some red in your shit. Fuck John Deere. I'm mostly just salty because all these years doing these videos, I've been wearing a John Deere hat, and John Deere hasn't even, offered to send me just, a front wheel assist tractor or a skid steer to say thank you. Hell, this hat's gotten pretty dirty, and they haven't even replaced that for me. It's also annoying that apparently when you paint your tractors the color of money, everything to do with them costs more money, but I digress. What were we talking about again?
Monkey motherfuckers moving manufacturing to Mexico.
Oh, shit. Sorry, I thought we were doing brand loyalty trash talking here. Shifting gears. Yeah, those greedy fucks shouldn't be sending American jobs south of the border.
Guess what? It's not only John Deere, guys. All the fucking equipment manufacturers are going to move to Mexico.
Well, I have a feeling you and I are going to get along great. Go on, brother. Let's speak some truth to power.
Do you know why?
Hell yeah, I do. Let's say it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Fucking blood-sucking, leeching fucking unions.
I think I misheard you. Let's try that again.
Why does your F-150 cost so fucking much?
Unions. Okay, never mind. I guess you did mean to say unions. I misread the situation again. So shifting gears again, this is now a PSA as to why you don't huff diesel exhaust. Guys, I know it can be cold out sometimes in the fall when you go to harvest, but this is the reason that you don't sit in the tractor with it warming up with the shed door closed. It kills brain cells and makes you say dumb stuff on the internet.
Unions are the worst fucking thing to ever happen.
Overtime, paid holidays, safe working conditions, workman's comp, sick time, livable wages, getting paid in real money rather than whatever monopoly money script the logging companies and coal companies used to pay people in. Yeah, all of that is just horrible, said no one ever. Unless, of course, you're a blood-sucking oligarch exploiting your workforce. Then those things suck.
They are exactly why Ford, John Deere, every fucking manufacturing company in this country has to charge so much.
Dude, they quite literally are not. John Deere profits over $7 billion annually. This year, they're on track to be over $8 billion. But that's paltry compared to Ford's annual record profits of over $20 billion. 23 and some change last year, to be precise. And that blood-sucking leeching union labor you go on and on about driving up the cost of that F-150 accounts for a whopping 6 to 8% of the truck's total cost. Over 20 to 30% of the truck's cost is profit. In fact, Ford could literally double everybody on the assembly line's wage and not raise the price of the truck and still make money. And I haven't dug up the hard numbers on Deere, but their revenue to profit margin is pretty close to identical to Ford, so I'm assuming their labor costs are about the same as well. So anyone who would make the argument that single-digit percentage labor costs is the reason that your Ford and fucking farm equipment costs so much is about as bright as a first-generation Game Boy screen. Don't worry, just let me go dig up some batteries for the little clip-on light, and we'll really shine some light on just how stupid this argument is without even needing statistics. Just a little common fucking sense would tell you that if your argument had any merit whatsoever, cars and equipment that companies like Ford, GM, Volkswagen, Nissan, etc. already build in Mexico, like the Ford Bronco Sport, would cost considerably less than their competitors or American-built counterparts. And they don't, do they? In fact, can you give me an example of any time a company offshored and then lowered its prices accordingly? No, you can't. Because it turns out companies are raising their prices for shareholder returns, not to cover labor costs. And it turns out that they're offshoring jobs not to reduce labor costs, but to increase, wait for it, shareholder returns. Because it turns out rich fucks are greedy fucks who count on dumb fucks who will believe that it is poor people's fault for expecting enough money to pay rent instead of rich people's fault for exploiting all of us by overcharging us and underpaying us. I wonder what it feels like to be a little female lapdog for these corporate overlords. What propaganda table scrap is your favorite little treat? Now, to really put the stupidity of this argument to bed, union participation is at an all-time low in this country after Reagan broke the American Union. However, back in the days that, America was great, a man got paid enough to support his whole family, their house in the suburbs, and a couple cars with a low-skill lever-pulling job. Because people got paid enough and stuff didn't cost too much, participation was over triple what it is today. So if unions really drove up prices, we should have the cheapest shit in history right now. Yet here you are on the internet bitching about the price of a truck and a tractor. So once again, my friend, open up that shed door, because those fumes aren't doing you any favors.
Cue the Whitesnake music, here we go again, or is it here I go again? Either way, we've got another round of layoffs, this time not in tech and not in media, not in manufacturing. Well, I guess this is manufacturing, but it's the heart of Americana. John Deere is at the center of this one. Here's the article in the headline. Only reason is greed. John Deere causes outrage as staff slashed and production moved to Mexico. And you may be thinking, wow, maybe they must have had a terrible year. They've got to slash costs and figure it out. Nope, I'm going to show you another clip from this article. In fiscal year 2023, the company reported over $10 billion in profits, with CEO John May receiving $26.7 million in total compensation. And additionally, John Deere spent more than $7.2 billion on stock buybacks and provided over $1.4 billion in dividends to shareholders. Man, it does not get more greedy than that, right? Again, fine, if you want to move operations because production, but man, you're coming off of a record year and you're going to close, I think they closed 500 or closed plants last year, 500 people lost their jobs. I don't know how many a couple hundred are going to lose them at least this year. And they're not announcing it to Q3, so production doesn't slip over the summer months as they try to hit their targets. Man, it's crazy. And again, I don't know why I'm surprised, and I'm guessing not many other folks are surprised, but for some reason I thought maybe the traditional long-term companies, John Deere, wouldn't be a part of this, but welcome to the party. So just another example that corporate is in chaos, and it's only one thing, and it's greed and profits, which again, I know it's been this way for a long time, but they're really taking it to another level. So if you're in corporate, good luck.
You guys aren't going to believe this shit. I'll make it fast, but stay to the end for the kicker. You remember the last few years when you could not find a single family home, and if you could, you probably couldn't afford it because you had corporate interests like Zillow and BlackRock. They were coming in, heavily investing in the real estate market, wiping the single family homes off the market so the average person could not even buy one. Fast forward to this week, I'm sure you've seen the story of the Missouri farmer, the young guy who was at risk of losing his farm because the grant that he was going to receive to reimburse him for all these expenses he had been cut. Well, look, they've also cut U.S. aid, which gave farmers millions and millions of dollars because they would buy their crops and then send them overseas or send them, places here in the United States to help people in need, but it also helped the farmers. Well, I found out today that there is a website called Acre Trader. Acre Trader is a company that heavily invests in agricultural land. So you can go invest in these farms that are failing, that somehow they're just starting to fail. And you
go ahead and read about this. This is something that I heard recently while I was going down the rabbit hole looking up information for John Deere. So JD Vance funded Acre Trader, and here's why that matters. So you see the man talking about Acre Trader and how it's about buying up farms that are struggling. So basically, Trump is making it very difficult for small farmers to keep their farms. And then you got the oligarchs coming in and swooping in and buying up their farms, just like, Wall Street was doing with the real estate a couple of years back. And I wonder when the American people are just going to get really tired of this and demand that there's more legislation put in place to protect the American people. But I digress. So let's get right into this article here. It came out September 18, 2024, before, Trump was even actually officially president. So the real estate platform streamlines investing in U.S. farmland. Now farms are fast becoming a portfolio staple for investors worldwide, okay? So some of the most pristine farmland in California can be yours, at least by proxy, in just a matter of minutes. That's the promise that Acre Trader, a company with the mission of simplifying investing in valuable U.S. farmland, makes to prospective financiers. And this is kind of like Fundrise. Fundrise basically did the same thing. I'm pretty sure there was some big oligarch maybe, donating, putting money into that or investing into that or whatever. And I, instead of me buying a home that was going to be overpriced, because I knew they were overpriced a couple of years ago, I decided to invest in Fundrise because I knew that Wall Street was buying up all these neighborhoods and was basically essentially trying to create a market where the American people are going to have to rent their homes because we're not going to be able to afford to live in those homes. How in the hell do you compete with Wall Street when they're literally, homes are flying off the market, cash offers, like straight up cash, and they were going over the asking price to ensure they got that house? And forget that one house, it was entire neighborhoods at some point. And if you go to Fundrise, you actually can find tons of neighborhoods, homes, and all kinds of different real estate that you can invest in and get dividends paid to you when you're investing into this. So you basically are owning property, but it's through this weird roundabout proxy way, because you can't really afford to actually buy homes in the real way. That's one reason to do it. But the second reason is just because why would you want to buy an overpriced house and then be under your house, which means you owe more for the house than what it's actually worth, and then crying all over TikTok, which I will show you all the videos. They're just really quite sad and a little bit pathetic, because I'm just like, no one told you like these houses were like overpriced. But I can see how people can get scammed, because I know I had a real estate agent that I knew, and she was trying to get me to shop and buy a house and, go looking for houses with her. And I was like, absolutely not. I was a closing agent. I love real estate, so I know these houses are overpriced. Okay, I actually want to be a real estate appraiser in my dream life, but that's another story. So, this is basically the same ideology as Fundrise. You have Acre Trader here, which is basically, I would consider it to be like a REITs, where it's like a real estate investment. I forgot what the freaking T means, but it's basically like you're investing via real estate, but it's like a trust. I think that's what the last of the T is. It's a trust. And you're putting your money in with a bunch of other people, and then you get dividends back. So its current offerings include 83 acres of almond trees in the San Joaquin Valley, advertised as an opportunity to invest in a water-secure almond orchard in the world's most productive almond-producing region. This property also boasts of senior water rights on the Kings River, suggesting that the land will continue to turn a profit long into the future, a dream of farmers and investors alike. Acre Trader is just one of many companies launched in the past decade that facilitate the sale of farmland, which has increasingly become a staple in investor portfolios. And of course, we know, if you don't know, Bill Gates, he has bought, I think he owns right now like the most farmland a single American could, like out of all Americans. He's like the single largest owner of farmland, if my memory serves me, or maybe like one other person. But the other person who I think owns more than him possibly may not even be American. I think they're like in another country somewhere, which I think also should be illegal. I know it's bad, but everybody wants a piece of America, and it just drives up the price. And it's like, why are we such whores when it comes to just everything's for sale? You know, it's like we act like we're such Puritans, but then when it comes to that money, we will sell out our president. We will sell out our mothers. We will sell out the farm. You know, it doesn't matter. We sell out our children. Like, we are literally just giving anything away to make the almighty dollar. And it's quite pathetic, actually, because now it's at the point where Americans can't even afford to live in our own country because China owns so much of it, and all these other investors all over the world. And you've got the oligarchs like Elon Musk coming from South Africa, becoming a, you know, multi-billionaire because of he's just getting rich off of Americans and America. And it's really disgusting. It's like, it just kind of reminds me of, you know, being black with slavery. It's like everyone is getting rich except the people from this country. Like, it's just, ugh, it's disgusting. So maybe now that it's happening to everyone, at some point we can all like get it together and actually fight the real fight against, you know, the oligarchs and this class war crap, and really take it to court and really create laws that will protect us from having to go through this ever the F again. Because I'm going to state whenever I go through my videos of like things that should be illegal. Of course, this should be one of those things. J.D. Vance should not be the vice president of the United States, and having all the knowledge, the insider knowledge that he has, and be able to do insider trading. Like, that's illegal. And why aren't we enforcing that? Like, where are all the AGs and all the attorneys and the lawsuits and the class action lawsuits? Like, this is disgusting, and is quite abhorrent. And I really would be surprised if the farmers did not come together, black, white, orange, yellow, I don't care what color they are, and say, you know, this is messed up because you all are driving down the prices. I'm pretty sure there's some word for that you shouldn't be allowed to do. And you're driving down these prices purposely with your tariffs and whatever else Trump is doing, and really just making the market crash so that the oligarchs can cash in. And it's total, complete bullshit. So Acre Trader is just one of many companies launched in the past decade that facilitates the sale of farmland, which has increasingly become a staple in investment portfolios. Recently, it was revealed that this includes the investment portfolio of Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance, the Republican senator from Ohio. And of course, now you know he's actually the vice president, no longer a nominee when this article had come out. So Vance has so far has invested up to $65,000 in private investments in Acre Trader during his stint as a venture capitalist, according to his 2022 financial disclosure to the Senate Ethics Committee. The investment firm Naraya Capital, which Vance launched in 2020 with backing from, oh, here he comes again, PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel, whatever. He's buddies with Elon Musk. Don't we see how that just goes full circle? So it was a vehicle for these investments and a key backer in early funding rounds of the farmland startup. And while Vance is no longer listed as a partner at Naraya Capital, according to his 2023 financial disclosure, he appears to still be an investor in the firm, or more technically, multiple legal entities with names including Naraya. There's no indication that Vance has divested from Acre Trader. Like, why should he? Because Trump's not divesting from anything, and they literally just doing whatever they want to do. So there's every indication that investment remains in place, said Lisa Graves, the executive director of True North Research, an investigative research group. She points to how Vance sold off his stock in Naraya Capital Management LLC in 2023, but that's not the same as the albeit similarly named investment vehicles used to invest in Acre Trader. In a social media post, Sarah Tabor, a farm and food systems strategist and the Democratic candidate for North Carolina Commissioner of Agriculture, describes Acre Trader as like Uber for buying U.S. farmland. Like Uber, Acre Trader makes it easy for more buyers to gain quick access to an ordinarily expensive asset, and who is one of his key investors profiting off of every sale, Tabor asked. J.D. Vance. Because as I can see here, he actually had invested. He's invested in the actual platform, so he's not just investing in the farmland. He's like making it so that platform exists. So any sales that are made, he's going to get a cut. Um, so here we have for Tabor Vance's large investment portfolio, an acre trader and a slew of other opaque startup companies raises questions about conflicts of interest and the mixing of venture capitalists and political pursuits, and like who's going to really stop them. No one, because white men do not really ever get punished in America. And even if they do for white collar crimes, the sentences are like a joke. They literally could just give that money off to somebody until they get out of prison and go right back to doing what they always do. Y'all should check out American Greed sometime. It's actually a really good series, but it just talks about, mediocre white men whose businesses fail and they just do all this embezzling, or they'll just be complete con artists, just conning people out of investment money. Think that one guy, what is that guy's name that went down? Was it Ponzi? Because I'm thinking Ponzi scheme. Anyways, y'all know who I'm talking about. And I feel like he only went down because he lost all the money. like if he was successful at it, he would be like Trump or something. He'd be getting rewarded. And this guy was, anyways, he was awful. They were awful. They take all the money from friends, family members, people they've known their whole lives. They don't care. So do you really think they care about us? They don't. So Vance's 2022 portfolio also included App Harvest, the startup company that promised to revolutionize farming and bring good jobs to Eastern Kentucky, only to quickly implode. What did I say about white mediocre men and their businesses failing? It's so funny. So there's an ethical case for any venture capitalist to disinvest from their interests before running for political office, said Tabor in an interview with Civil Eats. We don't know what he's incentivized to do. And why should he stop? I mean, everyone's doing it, even the Democrats. I don't think if you're holding office that you should be able to invest in the stock market and all these different little ventures that, you would have insider information to that the American people don't have. Now, even if you work there or something, I think you're not allowed to invest, because obviously you would have more information than the average person. So Acre Traders streamlines the process of investing in valuable farmland across the U.S. and Australia, from the flooded rice fields of the Mississippi Delta to the vast tracts of high-yielding corn in the Midwest, by placing the farmland in a limited liability corporation or LLC. You can then purchase shares, like Fundrise. Oh, yeah, it is a REIT. I knew it. In that LLC through a simple online process that takes just minutes. The company explains in a tutorial video for prospective investors. Acre Trader handles the administrative details for you and works with experienced farmers to manage the land. So it's just the expansion of the real estate investment trust, which is the REITs that I was talking about, REIT, business model that is now going into farmland, said Tabor. Is basically like a mutual fund for real estate. So with the REIT model, instead of buying a single condo, you buy a share in a company that owns 100 or 200 condos. This investment vehicle was established by Congress in the 1960s, opening the doors to large-scale real estate investments for smaller investors. It's a model that has enabled real estate hedge funds to buy up large swaths of the housing market, which should be illegal. Just because the single buyer, the regular Americans doing it, doesn't mean that your big Wall Street corporation should be doing it. You're not an individual. So driving up demand and prices. Recently, companies have begun applying a REIT-like model to land. So Acre Trader isn't technically a REIT, but is similar in that it enables a wider pool of investors to passively invest in farmland. It's basically a REIT, reaping the benefits of one of the most reliable assets to produce a return. But instead of buying shares in one company like a REIT, investors buy shares in individual LLCs that own the property. This ownership model makes it hard to tell who's invested in the farmland, and therefore more challenging to evaluate ethical conflicts and other risks of this investment. It's not that hard to find that out. Tabor is observing. Vance is listed as an investor in Acre Trader, not the individual LLCs, according to a Senate disclosure forms, which should still be illegal. After a fixed period, typically between 5 and 10 years, investors sell the land almost inevitably at a higher price than they purchased it, given that farmland appreciates over time. As Acre Trader's website boasts, land is one of the oldest investment classes in existence, which they always try to keep black people out of it, in which many cases has produced significant wealth over generations, which, of course, like I just said, is why they try to keep black people out of it, and also take our land, our farms, and everything like they did to my great-grandfather. So on top of their earnings from the sale, investors potentially benefit as well from renting the land to a farmer without being involved in managing it. Acre Trader is part of a larger trend of the financialization of farmland. The last 2 decades have witnessed a sharp uptick in investor interest in farmland as investors seeking to hedge against inflation and stock market volatility have turned to it as a reliable bet. Between 2008 and 2023, the amount of farmland purchased by investors increased by a staggering 231%. In recent years, bipartisan political leaders have pushed to curb foreign investments in U.S. farmland, citing the potential for a national security risk. Early this week, the Republican-controlled House passed a bill restricting citizens, finally, from China, Russia, North Korea, or Iran from purchasing U.S. farmland. Too late. They own like half of it, if not more. But even so, farmland is more concentrated in the hands of U.S. investors than ever before. Bill Gates, the wonderful company, and billionaire John Malone are the top owners of U.S. farmland. This investor-driven farmland gold rush has come with many unintended consequences for agriculture and farmers. It has led to the consolidation of farmland in regions with high-value land, while pricing out the farmers unable to compete with major investors for farmland. This has led land-strapped farmers to either drop out of farming or become tenant farmers, operating farms on rented land, like my ancestors had to do, whatever they call it, sharecropping back then. So what we've seen in reality is when investment interests come into communities, they drive up land prices and push farmers to increasingly marginal ends, said Paul Towers, the executive director of Community Alliance with Family Farmers, CAFF, or CAF. He says that he consistently observes farmers struggling to buy land, often outbid by investors who have the ability to pay for land entirely in cash, just like they were doing for the houses during the big real estate boom that we just experienced a couple of years ago. So even when investors seek to keep farmland in operation, rental arrangements can be challenging for farmers because it gives them less freedom and security over their land, especially if they have a short-term lease. Towers has observed that leasing rather than owning farmland can make it harder for farmers in their network to make the kind of long-term investments in their land necessary for pursuing environmental and climate solutions. How can a farmer make significant investments in their soil health if they don't know if they're going to be on that property next year, said Towers? Why would they invest in hedgerows for beneficial insects and pollinators? Why would they develop more water holding capacity on their farm? AcreTrader promises to be different, however, claiming to partner with farmers in stewarding land and supporting livelihoods. I do not believe shit they're saying. This includes the language of their leases. We structure our leases according to industry-leading sustainability standards, encompassing specific conditions related to soil fertility, erosion control, groundwater protection, and input management, states the company's website. AcreTrader declined a request to provide Civil East with a copy of a lease. I knew that was coming. Or to explain the process for determining its sustainability standards. For AcreTrader's typical buyers, the AcreTrader platform connects U.S. investors to farmers who want to grow their operations, and we believe it's a good thing to see capital formation in favor of helping the American farmer. No, they like the idea of that capital coming into their pockets because everyone is so greedy in America. They are beholden to all the corporate and oligarch interests. It's really quite disgusting and pathetic. So wrote Rob Moore, the company's vice president, in an email. He also added Senator Vance has no involvement in AcreTrader's operations or strategic direction, shall buy. So some caution against painting all investors with a broad brush, pointing to a potential role for some forms of investors in helping facilitate land access for farmers in some cases. I do believe there is an opportunity for investors to think about how to deploy non-destructive capital to access the purchase of farmland, said Gabby Perea, a farmer and the co-director of the Land Network program at the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust. She points to Dirt Capital, which works with farmers in financing farmland, including through shared ownership models. This differs from AcreTrader's model, which is aimed at helping investors, not farmers, buy farmland. The ownership of farmland can also be especially important to Black farmers who have been systematically denied land access and therefore denied one of the most reliable investments for generating wealth. Most Black farmers, for historical reasons, for family reasons, are seeking to own their land because it's related to reparations, said Perea. So for the Latino farmers, on the other hand, the ownership of land is related to self-determination on being able to do the type of operation that they want, Perea has observed in her work. In some cases, she's seen that a rental agreement can provide self-determination, but it largely depends on the relationship with the specific landowner. And while AcreTrader emphasizes quote-unquote land stewardship, Perea pointed to how the company currently limits these rental partnerships to row crop, permanent crop, and timber. This leaves out diversified vegetable operations, The farms that are often engaged in some of the most innovative, climate-friendly practices. These are also the farms that tend to struggle to access crop insurance, lacking the guarantee of a stable income even when crops fail, which may deter investors. In general, the company mainly lists farmland with high-value crops that can deliver short-term profits, but aren't always best for the environment. Take California's almond industry, a water-intensive crop. Almonds already use an estimated 28% of the reliable water supply available to California agriculture. That is a lot, like almost 30% of California's water supply. That's insane to me. And as they're saying, this is according to Acre Trader's analysis. However, the company assures investors that quote unquote California's almond industry isn't going anywhere, even as the state implements water restrictions. Instead, Acre Trader advises that investors seek out almond orchards with reliable water rights, expecting these properties to appreciate over time. On the other hand, the company advises against investing in almond orchards without water access, expecting these acres to shrink and be removed from production. It's an approach to investing that appears to be based on a market analysis of the projected value for farmland and specific crops per region rather than environmental or climate concerns. So what a lot of these kinds of investment models fail to see is that farming is far more than just a short-term return on an investment, said Towers. The farming system that we want to be investing in for our future, farms that can survive droughts, wildfires, erratic water supplies, and other climate extremes are not always the methods that turn a profit the quickest. And while it's hard to evaluate Acre Trader's model, it's clear that it allows an investor-backed startup to play a role in steering the future of agriculture and the U.S. food system. It begs the question, should we trust investors with this power, even the many investors that claim to help farmers over the most fertile, water-rich farmland in the U.S.? And the answer is absolutely fucking not, because they have always, any land that these big oligarch investor people are over, is just always detrimental to the American people. We're eating like pesticides and fake foods with no seeds in them, and whatever, God knows whatever else we're eating. And it's just like, no, we don't want these people, who are just trying to turn a profit. They don't care about the land. They don't care about the health of the American people. They don't care about, climate change and so on and so forth. They just don't care, and it's evident, and there's so many receipts that show how much they don't care, how much they will allow American people to get sick just so they can turn a profit. They don't care. It's really quite disgusting. And I just feel like there's so many people that need to be in prison. Like so many people, I just got like this nauseous feeling thinking about what I was just saying just now about how much they don't care and how they let people get sick. And it just made me just nauseous. And it's like, I'm not even going to say why, because I already know why. It's just heads need to roll. That's all I'm going to say. Heads need to roll.
You can just buy them up. Well, guess who heavily funded Acre Trader? JD fucking Vance. Do you think they're out here just destroying these small farms so they can buy them up, all these tech bros? Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it?
I know you told me you voted for President Trump. What were you hoping that he would do?
I was hoping he would did something that made sense regarding the economy, made some kind of progress in bettering, the benefits of being a veteran. But I mean, it just seemed like he actually cared about doing what was best for the country. But now it just feels like all about me, Donald Trump, not, the guy out there working in the trenches trying to make ends meet, trying to pay a mortgage, trying to pay the bills. It goes against everything I expected when, I voted for him.
So you're not satisfied with what you said?
No. And it doesn't even have to do with anything about me getting fired. I mean, if I had gotten fired as part of the, government, cutting government spending, I would have been fine with that. I can accept that. But he's not delivering on anything he said he was going to do. So what's your real game plan? It doesn't make sense to me.
There are some things that he promised to do that he has put in place. I mean, there are executive orders that he's done, that he said that he was going to do. You don't feel like he's lived up to those promises?
I mean, where are the results? I mean, seriously, prices are still going up. We're now in the middle of a tariff war with a bunch of countries that used to be our steadfast allies. I mean, how do you make an enemy of Canada? You know, they're right next to us, and they've been one of our premier allies and commerce partners for, I mean, seriously, like what, centuries now?
And he did say that he was going to put tariffs in place. Did you just not think that they would be implemented in this particular way?
I didn't think they were going to be put in play in a juvenile way. I mean, where was the attempt to actually talk to the heads of these other countries like, hey, you know, I feel you have unfair tariffs against our products. I'd like to talk about it first. And if we can't work out some kind of resolution, then I feel to protect our people, we need to implement this kind of tariff. There was no attempt at even talking to the other countries.
I'm a third-generation Montana farmer rancher. I raise registered Black Angus. I also sell about 1,000 ton of hay. The operations of a new tractor are really nice. Modern equipment has a lot of sensors, electronic switches. These power shift transmissions are wonderful. But during the busy season, the tractor kept shutting down for no reason. It was weird. It would just randomly shut down. And so I thought maybe it was something in the fuel system. I changed the fuel filter, but it kept doing it. So then I finally called our John Deere mechanic, and he said, really the only way we can figure this out is we got to hook up a computer and download the error codes. And I said, all right, can I come in and borrow it? Oh no, we don't do that. And I said, okay, I'll rent it. How much does it cost to rent it? No, we don't rent it. Well, I had hay ready to bale, and that's a critical time because if you get a little rain, it could wreck the quality of the hay. He says, I can't get to you for a week. They aren't going to give me the tools to be able to fix it myself. I was stuck.
John Deere is costing farmers and ranchers like Walter billions of dollars in lost income. And what John Deere is doing affects you even if you're not a farmer.
It has officially happened. Authorization denied.
A repair shop like mine, we're charging half what Apple would charge.
Almost a whole entire paycheck just to swap out some handlebars.
If I replace a component, it breaks something in the phone.
I just needed a battery, come on.
Why is it so hard to repair the things we own? So this is the tractor.
Yep, this is the culprit. It was just randomly shutting down. First thing we did was change the fuel filters in it, and it didn't really resolve the problem. So I was stymied at that point.
That's the only thing that you basically have the ability to do without the John Deere software.
That's exactly right, yep. The first couple tractors I learned to drive on didn't have any electric controls. It was all mechanical controls. But, you know, those old tractors were pretty easy to diagnose if there was a problem, and pretty easy to fix those problems.
When a modern John Deere tractor malfunctions, you can't diagnose the problem without John Deere's software. But John Deere won't let farmers or independent mechanics use it. Only an authorized dealership.
And I said, all right, well, send your tech out, let's get it done.
Yeah.
And he said, well, but we're pretty busy. We might be able to do it a little faster if you brought it into our shop.
And that faster ended up being
a month.
In farming, time is of the essence.
We have windows of opportunity where we can get our crop planted at the right time. Too early, you might damage the crop. Too late, you might damage the crop. And then on top of that, you've got Mother Nature.
If Walter didn't bale his hay quickly, he stood to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. On top of that, the repair wasn't cheap.
The part itself was about $150, $160. And the labor to actually change that part was about $300. But my bill was almost $5,000.
This is why those repair restrictions exist. Service and repair work can yield John Deere 5 times more profit than new equipment sales.
John Deere's profits grew by 61% in recent years, and their CEO's salary grew by 160%.
Was just a faulty sensor. It only took them, you know, a couple hours to swap it out.
Is that something you could have done yourself?
Oh, certainly. Yep.
Okay.
As long as I had the software and the computer to reprogram the sensor.
So you need the software both to diagnose the problem and then also make the actual part repair.
Yep, that's right.
That strategy of requiring software to install a new part, it's called parts pairing. and it was invented by Apple, who's been a real leader in the anti-repair space. They also glue in phone batteries, so you can't just swap them out when they die. And they use proprietary screws to make it harder to get into their product. Other companies have followed suit, making it more expensive for us to fix our devices, kitchen appliances, video game consoles, cars, and so much more.
Harley-Davidson Screaming Eagle parts only, and only installed by Harley-Davidson mechanics. If you install anything on your motorcycle, your warranty is voided.
Taylor, the manufacturer of McDonald's ice cream machines, makes 25% of their profits from repairs. So, like John Deere, they lock their machine software so only an authorized technician can fix them. And stores end up waiting weeks for one to arrive, which is why McDonald's soft serve machine is always broken.
Y'all wonder why the ice cream machine's still broken?
For 3 generations, Walter and his family have been fixing their own equipment. But now, John Deere isn't just restricting them from doing so. They're arguing that farmers don't actually own their tractors. So, a quick primer on property rights. If I go into a bookstore and buy a book, I can confidently say I own it. I can do whatever I want with it. Read it, lend it, resell it. I can even take a power tool to it and turn it into a lamp. This is all thanks to a very old provision of copyright law called the First Sale Doctrine.
Once a copy is sold to a member of the public, the publisher or the rights holder no longer has control over that copy. That's how we have public libraries in the United States, for example. It's why we have used record stores and Goodwill.
The First Sale Doctrine draws a clear line between intellectual property and the personal property of consumers. But in the digital age, that line is becoming blurry. If I go to Amazon's ebook store, I'm clicking a button that says buy, and I'm paying them money. But according to Amazon, I didn't buy anything. I only licensed it. When you frame a transaction as licensing instead of selling, the consumer rights we get with the First Sale Doctrine don't apply anymore. Instead, those rights remain with, in this case, Amazon, who can put all sorts of restrictions on us. So, according to the contract I agreed to when I bought this book, I can only read this ebook using an Amazon-approved device if I have an active Amazon account. I can't loan it, make copies of it, or resell it. And Amazon will make extra sure I don't do any of those things by putting digital locks on their ebooks that would stop me if I tried. It's like renting a book with an invisible string that ties it to the seller. That invisible string is called Digital Rights Management, or DRM, and you'll find it on almost every digital product. Software, music, movies, books, video games. And if you figure out how to get around your ebook's DRM to lend it to a friend anyway, you'd be violating the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Companies are using the DMCA to justify lots of dystopian things, like slapping subscription fees onto our printers and toothbrushes. We dug into that in another video you can check out here. So, this book I can lend, this one I can't because I'd be violating copyright law? It doesn't really make sense. But John Deere is applying that same twisted legal logic to farmers who want to fix their equipment worth millions of dollars. They told the Copyright Office that farmers aren't paying for the copyrighted software that runs their tractors. They're paying for a license to operate their tractors.
Do you think it's fair that farmers and ranchers will pay $300,000 or $1 million to purchase a combine or a tractor to not own it? We're not leasing it, we're buying that. The gadgets that are in it are part of that equipment, and the technology that runs that gadgets is part of that equipment. We thought when we bought that tractor that we bought that tractor lock, stock, and barrel.
Now, you might be wondering, if farmers don't own their tractors because they run on software, doesn't that call into question whether we truly own any of our smart devices? Car companies certainly think so. General Motors told the Copyright Office that the software in your vehicle is licensed to you, so it's GM who owns the vehicle through its entire life. If you like taking your car to your local repair shop for oil changes, this is bad news.
In the past, an oil change was as simple as, pressing the gas pedal 3 times. Today, you're hooking up an extremely expensive piece of software.
Bob Lane owns this independent auto repair shop near Boston. He's seen firsthand how car manufacturers have used new tech advancements not just to make cars more safe and more fun to drive, but to monopolize the repair market.
What I'll have to do is I will have to plug into the OBD connector along with my scanner.
Bob's technician is using BMW's proprietary software to finish up an oil change on a 2023 model.
I'm now connected to the vehicle.
Each manufacturer has their own software, which mechanics need to figure out why your check engine light is on and then to do the actual repair. Car makers won't sell that software to mechanics, but they will license it through expensive temporary subscriptions.
24 hours can be $200, $250. An annual fee could be $10,000 or $15,000, depending on the manufacturer.
What we're really concerned about today is resetting the engine oil.
When the technician tries to reset the level, nothing happens.
And sure enough, it didn't do it.
Even after subscribing to BMW's software, Bob's shop can't reset the oil light because BMW has put on a software lock that only the dealership can do it.
We should be able to reset that light. We're in the auto repair business. So if you bring your car to me, I don't want to fix your car and get 80% of the way through a diagnosis and not have the information to complete that diagnosis, the additional 20%. And then I say, I got to send you to the dealer because we don't have the information.
Data restrictions cost independent repair shops around $3 billion each year.
Do you want to see your mom and dad's friend down the street that was fixing cars go out of business? Because that's what's going to happen.
Car companies also lock out local repair shops by aggressively getting design patents for the parts of a car that are most likely to be damaged in a collision.
So if you crash your Ford Fiesta and you need a new fender, if there's a design patent on that fender, the only place you're going to be able to get that part is from Ford, and Ford gets to charge whatever it wants to charge.
These are all reasons why your car repair bill has shot up nearly 70% in the last decade. Repair monopolies don't just cost us money, they also endanger our health, like for people who use electric wheelchairs.
I've got friends that spend almost a whole year in bed because they're waiting on repairs.
And having to wait for authorized repairs can leave hospitals without critical equipment for weeks.
They don't want to give us tech support over the phone, they don't want to sell us parts, and they don't want to give us any technical literature.
For farmers and ranchers like Walter, repair monopolies exacerbate the pressures of a high-stakes job.
Farmers and ranchers, we have the highest suicide rate in the nation. And it's because our occupation is so stressful. Equipment breaking down, and you are not able to fix it, you can't do anything, that's a whole new level of stress.
So how can we break up these repair monopolies? Well, 3 ways. The first is to enforce our existing antitrust laws. Farmers have filed multiple class action lawsuits against John Deere, saying their repair monopoly violates the Sherman Act. The Justice Department says they support the farmers, and the Federal Trade Commission has been investigating John Deere's repair monopoly since 2021. The FTC has already broken up repair monopolies from Harley-Davidson, Weber, and Westinghouse, so they can't void your warranty anymore if you use your local repair shop or do the repairs yourself. The FTC also got us our McFlurries back. Along with other repair advocates, they got the Copyright Office to grant an exemption to the DMCA so that third-party repair can circumvent the digital locks on the ice cream machines to make the necessary repairs. And that's the second way to break up repair monopolies, updating our outdated copyright laws. The Freedom to Repair Act would permanently amend the DMCA so we can jailbreak all our machines and devices, as long as it's for repair. But the most important thing we can do is pass right to repair laws and force companies to sell products that are easier to repair without going through the manufacturer. Laws like this are currently working their way through 30 state houses.
The right to repair movement is gaining more traction.
This is about competition.
I bought it, but I'm kind of a slave to your operation.
Is it more cost efficient to have it fixed or to have it replaced?
You do a charge port repair for $15.
$15?
Yeah.
Okay.
Still, the legal battle has been tough. On one side, you have farmers, local repair shops, disability rights advocates, DIY fixers, and zero waste advocates. On the other side, a group of companies worth over $10 trillion. And with all that money in lobbying, the fight has gotten pretty dirty.
Microsoft was went around telling our members in the legislature they weren't going to sell their Surface tablets in Washington any longer if we passed the bill the way it was.
To see that tug of war in action, let's see how it's playing out in the auto industry, where the fight over right to repair started nearly 30 years ago.
Why should only some people be able to obtain repair information, while others do not have access to it?
Over the next decade, Congress considered several federal right to repair bills for cars, but automakers lobbied fiercely and none passed.
But we just don't think there's a problem.
Until 2012. Massachusetts passed the nation's first right to repair law for cars.
Very excited, very ecstatic.
Automakers agreed to obey the state law across the country to avoid more costly battles, but their lobbying did get them a loophole. The law didn't require car manufacturers to share any repair data that was transmitted wirelessly, which today is how most new cars do it. And when Massachusetts tried to close the loophole in 2020, car companies spent $25 million trying to defeat the bill. They ran ads like this one, showing a woman being stalked in a parking garage at night. The message? Right to repair laws will give criminals access to your car's data. That's a wild argument to make, so let's take a closer look at it. New cars are like smartphones on wheels. They're collecting really sensitive data about how we look, where we go, and how fast we get there. And car companies use that data to infer even more intimate stuff about us, like our genetic information and sexual activity. That's creepy, wish they wouldn't do that at all. But they're saying that sharing repair data with mechanics would also compromise all this other vehicle data. But the Mozilla Foundation found that car companies are already exposing our information, with data breaches caused by their own mistakes, not because of right to repair. And here's the key part. Having exclusive access to all our vehicle data is really valuable. That's why automakers are fighting right to repair laws this viciously. They want data monopolies. According to a New York Times investigation, car companies take that data on your driving behavior, like how often you're braking too hard or speeding, and they sell it to data brokers, who then sell it to insurance companies, who then use it to jack up your insurance rate. Wanting to maintain a data monopoly may also be why John Deere has spent millions of dollars lobbying against right to repair bills.
This precision ag equipment that you're using is uploading data to the cloud. So are you planting corn? Are you planting soybeans? Are you planting wheat? These equipment manufacturers are harvesting real-time data of the condition of the crop, the quality of the crop, and the yields of those crops.
Real-time aggregate data about which crops are going to hit the market before they do.
They could actually manipulate the market with it. They only have to know the information about what's actually happening with harvest minutes before somebody else knows it.
Across the country, the fight over right to repair wages on. Still, these 8 states have managed to pass a bill. One of those is Massachusetts' updated auto repair law, which passed in 2020 with 75% of voters approving it. But automakers sued to block it, and the legal battle has kept it from being fully enforced. The most comprehensive law is Minnesota's. It grants the right to repair for consumer electronics and home appliances, but it leaves out farm equipment and wheelchairs. Colorado's law does cover farm equipment and wheelchairs, and it, along with Oregon, also makes parts pairing illegal, so manufacturers can't use software to stop you or a local repair shop from installing replacement parts. But a patchwork of state laws isn't enough. We need comprehensive federal right to repair laws, like the Fair Repair Act, which would remove software locks and other repair restrictions from your phone, laptop, and other devices. Lawmakers have also introduced federal right to repair bills specifically for cars and for farm equipment.
It's kind of therapeutic to take on a problem and fix that problem yourself. And that has been taken away from me. It is about 30 years old. It has around 12,000 hours on it.
Walter bought this older John Deere tractor secondhand so that when it broke down, he could troubleshoot it with his local mechanic.
You pull it back 3 times, and then to the right twice, and then read the error code.
With the error codes, Walter and his mechanic could figure out what part he needed to replace, which he found on eBay.
And this was an official John Deere part that you bought on eBay?
That's right, on eBay.
Walter installed the new part himself and was back up and running within a day.
No software, didn't have to reprogram the part.
And the final repair bill?
About 90 bucks. And I was able to do it myself.
President Donald Trump says that he plans to impose a 200% tariff on John Deere.
Now John Deere's running all the way to Mexico, slashing more than 600 jobs in Illinois and Iowa in the process. This is just recently.
John Deere is set to be slapped with a whopping 200% tariff on its equipment shipped into the U.S. This announcement has triggered a series of moves by the John Deere CEO and its employees. No doubt you want to know about the new development. Stick to this video to the end. John Deere was born in 1804 in Rutland, Vermont. His father was lost at sea when he was 4 years old. As a result of this event, he was raised single-handedly by his mother. Growing into a man, John Deere learned and began to sharpen his skills in becoming a blacksmith. In 1836, when the New England economy collapsed, he followed other Vermonters to Illinois, where he established a blacksmith shop in Grand Detour. Shortly after arriving, Deere learned from his farmer customers that the commonly used cast-iron plows of the day performed poorly in the sticky soil of the Midwest prairie. These plow bottoms were affected by the stubborn soil in this region, which made soil clung to the plow bottoms. Because of this, farmers had to stop and scrape off the dirt every few feet. Convinced that a plow with a highly polished surface would shed the sticky soil as it moved through the field, Deere made a plow using steel from a broken saw blade. The need for a self-scouring plow was so great that it is said hundreds of people gathered at the farm of Lewis Crandall near Grand Detour to see the young blacksmith test his new product. It wasn't long before manufacturing plows became not only Deere's identity, but his business as well. In 1848, John Deere moved his growing operation 70 miles southwest to Moline, Illinois, on the east bank of the Mississippi River. The river provided water power for running a factory, as well as riverboats for bringing in raw materials and moving plows to market. Soon, John Deere's company was making 1,000 plows a year. Business boomed as Deere established a reputation for both his plows and his principles. Those same principles guide Deere & Company to this day. Among them was his insistence on selling only high-quality products. In 1858, Deere transferred leadership of the company to his son Charles, who served as its vice president. John Deere retained the title of president of the company, but turned his attention to civic and political activities. In 1868, John Deere's son put in effort in ensuring that the business was incorporated under the Deere & Company name. Later, in 1886, he left his heirs with the responsibility of leading the company for the next century. Now, Deere & Company is a world leader in providing advanced products and services, and is committed to the success of customers who cultivate, harvest, transform, enrich, and build on land to meet the world's dramatically increasing need for food, fuel, shelter, and infrastructure. Despite Deere & Company's rich history, it has had its fair share of turbulence over the years. Yes, Deere & Company has had to face several trials that have shaken the legacy left by John Deere. In January 2025, states and the FTC filed a lawsuit against Deere & Company over unlawful equipment repair services. The lawsuit, filed in conjunction with the state of Illinois and the state of Minnesota, alleges that Deere & Company throttled the ability of farmers and independent repair providers to repair Deere equipment, leaving farmers heavily reliant upon Deere's network of authorized dealers for many key repairs. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel with the bell notification turned on for more videos. Many of Deere's newer equipment require a software tool to diagnose and repair electronic problems in these tools. However, what makes Deere more complicated is that the information and knowledge needed to create that software is only available to Deere, according to the information on the lawsuit. So, by making this tool only available to Deere dealers, farmers have to go to Deere dealers for repairs rather than completing the repairs themselves or with an independent technician. As a result, this reduces farmers' ability to receive timely service and increases costs for these farmers. Well, Deere & Company wasn't going to keep silent over these allegations over its head. It soon released a response to these claims. In its defense, John Deere claimed that the statement of the lawsuit is based on flagrant misrepresentations of the facts and fatally flawed legal theories, and it punishes innovation and pro-competitive product design. In other words, saying that what it was alleged was untrue and not completely factual enough. Furthermore, it insisted that the repair service protocol was solely established to keep the safety of farmers and the durability of its products as a priority. Additionally, John Deere said that it was in the process of actively negotiating with the government over a potential settlement before the filing of the lawsuit, which landed just days before President Donald Trump took office, thus suggesting that this lawsuit could be politically motivated. In a bid to ease pressure mounted by lawsuits, John Deere announced another significant step forward in supporting customers' DOS, ability to maintain and repair their machines across the agricultural and construction industries. Deere announced that its latest addition to Deere's suite of digital solutions will further empower customers and independent repair technicians by enabling them to reprogram Deere-manufactured electronic controllers. John Deere's latest expansion will offer a more user-friendly, centralized platform for self-repair. As a leader in agricultural and construction technology as well as customer support, John Deere is committed to further enhancing machine ownership for a new generation. This right-to-repair controversy reveals how John Deere's strategy has shifted from a focus on farmer accessibility to a more locked-in model that favors more revenue generation on its part than on the well-being of farmers who rely on its products. Well, this controversy wasn't the only one that John Deere had to deal with. Something more was brewing. Let's examine that. Another heat looms for John Deere. In an update released, John Deere told government bodies that approximately 300 John Deere workers will be without jobs after another round of layoffs took effect. John Deere will lay off nearly 300 employees from their facilities. The company claims that there has been a decreased demand for farm equipment lately. 3 different facilities will see workers impacted. 2 facilities in Illinois and 1 in Iowa. John Deere, as a large company with more than 100 employees, is required by law to report upcoming mass layoffs, just not names of who's on the list. In view of this, plants that would be affected include the East Moline plants, which would be responsible for laying off 200 production employees at one branch and 7 employees at the other branch. For the John Deere Davenport in Iowa, 80 production employees would experience layoff. These layoffs have, within a short period, become normal for John Deere. Since March, Deere has laid off nearly 2,600 workers across plants in Ankeny, Dubuque, Ottumwa, Waterloo, and the Quad Cities, Davenport, and East Moline, as well as office workers at its Urbandale Research Center in Moline and other offices in Johnston and Dubuque. In a bid to shift the blame away from its relocation plans, John Deere also informed workers that the reason for the layoff was not because production shifted to Mexico. Instead, it was related to the weakening farm economy and a reduction in customer orders for our equipment. According to Reuters, John Deere's quarterly revenues slumped by 35% as more farmers retained their aging equipment or switched to rentals owing to weak incomes and high borrowing costs. Despite the drop in revenue, John Deere is still profitable. Since 2019, John Deere has invested more than $2.5 billion in American factories. However, criticisms have not been seized for John Deere, as it is blamed for gradually neglecting the American workforce for somewhere else. One major source of frustration towards John Deere has been how it has chosen to reward its investors over its workforce. Every year, there is a remarkable increase in dividends and buybacks, noticed at the management level. However, little or leftover is left for those at the ground level. Many have faulted John Deere's approach to reward these investors rather than prioritizing employees who work themselves off on the job. The increased criticism of John Deere reflects a growing frustration with a system that allows corporations to enrich themselves at the expense of the working class. In June 2022, Deere announced plans to move tractor cab production from its Waterloo, Iowa plant to Mexico. The company had also announced that it will move manufacturing of skid steer loaders and compact track loaders from its facility in Dubuque, Iowa to Mexico by the end of 2026. On its part, the company stated that low demand for certain types of agriculture and construction was the reason for its shift. However, people have said that basis was untrue. Many have said that John Deere's claims were false and that the move was motivated by greed. On a broader scale, John Deere's move to Mexico is due to the low labor wage that Mexico offers. In Mexico, the wages paid to a worker are much less than the remuneration offered to an average worker in the United States. In addition, the management has argued that raw materials like steel, which are used in the manufacturing of many agricultural equipment, are available at a low cost in Mexico when compared to the United States. Despite these reasons, criticisms have not stopped pouring in. Employees and ex-employees have stated that this move was not necessary for John Deere, as it makes enough profit to survive in the United States. They have pointed to the stock market predictions about John Deere's financial future to support their claims. They claim that if John Deere wanted, it could still perform very well for at least 5 years and keep jobs moving for its employees. If not for anything, keeping plants in the U.S. could be a sign to show loyalty to those who have supported and patronized it over the past 20 years. John Deere's move to relocate some of its plants to Mexico has attracted national interest, this time from Donald Trump. Donald Trump raised eyebrows by threatening to impose 200% tariffs on Deere if the company goes forward with plans to lay off staff in the Midwest and move some production to Mexico by the end of 2026. After this announcement, John Deere started to be impacted negatively on the stock market charts, as many who invested decided to pull out over the threats. Also, this threat by Donald Trump places John Deere between 2 contracting options: ignore the threats, lay off more workers, and move forward with the relocation plan. This would mean an increase in revenue. Keep U.S. plants running and maintain the workforce and profits for at least the next 4 years. While everyone seems to be turning their backs on John Deere, the company is working to restore its public image. For years, John Deere has worked to increase the production of food and made agriculture easier through its innovations. With its partnership with the growth industry, John Deere is focused on integrating biofuels and other renewable energies in the production of its farm equipment. In fact, the partnership aligns with the United States' focus on a green energy future. Another collaboration that has brought praise to John Deere is its collaboration with Dovetail. This collaboration is inspired by their shared commitment to celebrating women's immense value and contributions to agriculture. Together, the two brands are focused on developing products that support and empower female farmers, craftsmen, and tradeswomen. With this footwear, the focus is on ensuring high performance and durability on the farm, with features like high-stretch, mid-weight fabric and a split hem for a smooth fit over boots. No doubt, these moves show that John Deere keeps an eye on the effort made by women in the U.S. agricultural industry.
There's a big label on these backhoes that says proudly built in the USA. But the truth is the biggest companies that make farm equipment and construction equipment like this,
hats off to the future.
They've been moving their jobs overseas.
Deere made the determination that, yeah, let's go ahead and pull the trigger on moving some stuff down Mexico.
In the last year, the biggest makers of farm and construction equipment have laid off thousands of workers across the Midwest.
The company wants us to live in that constant state of fear.
We set out to uncover how these iconic American companies are abandoning the workers that built them.
Not only did they have the gun to our head, they had it cocked as well.
The tactics corporations use to undercut their commitments to good jobs.
They have the perfect divide and conquer strategy.
It's a very powerless position right now.
And why American jobs keep disappearing despite politicians' promises to save them.
Not only will we stop our businesses from leaving for foreign lands, but under my leadership, we are going to take other countries' jobs.
I think the million-dollar question is just that. How do we keep the work in the U.S.? What's it look like? How do we do it?
For an average person out of high school, to get hired on John Deere is a pretty big deal.
Chris Larson worked at John Deere for 22 years.
John Deere has been the premier employer here in Ottumwa and many of the small communities throughout Iowa and Illinois for many, many years. But recently, they've moved the cutting department to Monterrey, Mexico.
In 2024, Deere cut its workforce in Ottumwa by about a third. Some people were laid off, and others, like Chris, were offered voluntary retirement. In 2023, Deere made $10 billion in profit and spent about $8 billion on stock buybacks and dividends.
Deere's in business to make money for their shareholders. Moving to somewhere like Mexico is attractive to them, so you have a cheaper workforce.
Chris says that Deere has used the threat of offshoring to demand concessions from its workers for decades. It really got started in the 90s, after NAFTA.
In a few moments, I will sign the North American Free Trade Act into law. This pact will create a free trade zone stretching from the Arctic to the tropics, the largest in the world, a $6.5 billion market with 370 million people.
NAFTA gradually eliminated tariffs and trade barriers on products passing between the US, Canada, and Mexico. It was a green light for companies to move their factories wherever labor was cheapest.
NAFTA was a collaboration of both the Democratic and Republican parties. They both sold us out.
I remember being on the Union Hall floor here in the 90s. I saw it all coming. It began with NAFTA.
Mike Edwards was working an hour's drive away at Deere's competitor, Case New Holland.
I was county chair of the Democratic Party for 8 years. I got to meet a lot of politicians. And I remember in 2004 talking to John Kerry, and I was hammering Senator Kerry about trade laws and the unfair landscape that unions, well, I can't talk about that, I can't do that. And besides, who else are they going to vote for?
Since NAFTA, union membership in Iowa and surrounding states has been cut nearly in half. And even many union workers now start out on a lower pay scale than before.
In 1997, Deere threatened to move a couple facilities to Mexico if they didn't do this two-tier system.
Deere pushed its workforce onto a two-tier system, which meant lower pay for new hires. It effectively zeroed out years of wage and benefit gains for future employees. A few years later, Case followed Deere's lead in demanding a tiered contract.
The best way to explain it to you is you and me are working on a job. I've been there, say I'm a senior day worker. I'm making $10 more an hour doing the same job that you're doing right next to me, right? It creates issues in the workplace.
Nick Guernsey is president of the union at Case New Holland's Iowa plant. He explains the tier system created A workers, B workers, and C workers, the lowest paid.
An A worker has not got a pay raise in over 17 years. And the company is really proud of that. We had members that would work 40 plus hours a week in that plant, still qualify for state aid food assistance because they didn't make enough money. That's pretty sad when you're a billion-dollar corporation, right?
In 2021, John Deere workers across the Midwest went on strike. 7 months later, Case workers in Iowa and Wisconsin struck too.
So the strike happened because we were trying to close some of the gap issues.
After more than 260 days on the picket line, they reached an agreement on a new contract that included wage increases and upgrades for lower-tier workers. But then, about a year later, Case announced it was laying off over 200 of the workers who had fought for that contract and shifting their work to Mexico.
We made great gains, but at the end of the day, when you punch a bully in the mouth, sometimes the bully brings friends, right?
The pattern was the same at John Deere.
Thursday afternoon, workers in the Ottumwa John Deere plant received news that the company is moving mower conditioner production from the Ottumwa plant to a facility located in Monterrey, Mexico. The news has left workers in shock.
A lot of people speculate that these layoffs that we're facing now might be in retaliation for some of the gains that we made in these contracts.
The layoffs came in the last months of the 2024 campaign. On the road, Donald Trump started talking about them.
I'm just notifying John Deere right now. If you do that, we're putting a 200% tariff on everything that you want to sell into the United States.
Just 2 days after Trump's victory, case workers in Iowa were called into a meeting.
It was supposed to be just a regular meeting. As we walk into the room, we see individuals that don't normally go to our agenda meetings.
Tracy Chu has worked at Case for 12 years. Her husband, daughter, and son-in-law work there too.
We knew something was going down.
They gave us this third grade slideshow on what their plan was.
Case announced tentative plans to close its Iowa plant, eliminating over 300 jobs. The products built there would be moved to Italy and to a non-union plant in Kansas.
From a family view, from a community view, just absolute devastation, just a smack in the face. It's just not feasible to build a backhoe in Burlington, Iowa anymore.
Why not?
Because it costs too much.
Case showed its workers a presentation comparing its operating costs in different countries, saying that big wage and benefit cuts would be necessary to keep the plant in Iowa.
The total annual labor savings in Burlington would need to be over $33 per hour. So here's what they're saying is we need $33 an hour off the price of this.
And that's the fundamental problem. Companies like Case can pay workers in other countries nearly 10 times less to do the same job. To help offset this disparity, Congress passed an update to NAFTA, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or the USMCA.
Today, we're finally ending the NAFTA nightmare and signing into law the brand new U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement. Very special.
The USMCA gave the U.S. the power to penalize union-busting companies in Mexico and even bar their products from the U.S. The hope was that the threat of penalization would make room for worker organizing in Mexico and start to bring Mexican wages more in line with American wages, reducing the corporate incentive to offshore.
Si pudiera hablar con los compañeros de John Deere, de Caterpillar, el mensaje que les daría a ellos es que aquí en México tienen unos compañeros que están igual que ellos, luchando por mejores salarios.
Victor Manuel Vergara Garcia works for a Mexican subsidiary of Caterpillar, repairing their computers that run Caterpillar's heavy machinery. Like Deere and Case New Holland, Caterpillar increasingly builds its products south of the border, in the last 8 years nearly doubling its Latin American workforce. Victor makes about $3 an hour. In 2023, he led an effort to organize an independent democratic union at his plant.
Lo que estamos solicitando es un aumento justo a los salarios, respeto a nuestra libertad sindical, trato digno como trabajadores.
A week after Victor's union won its first vote, the company fired him. That's when the Biden administration decided to use the USMCA. It filed a case against the company, and under pressure, Caterpillar's subsidiary offered to reinstate Victor. It was one of about 30 times that the Biden administration used the USMCA to crack down on corporate labor abuses and help workers organize.
Lo que esperábamos era que con las sanciones la empresa se sentara con los trabajadores a negociar el contrato colectivo de buena fe.
But when Victor went on to lead workers on a strike, he found that the company had put him and other strikers on a region-wide employer blacklist, making it impossible to get other work. It's a classic strike-breaking tactic, illegal in the US and many other countries.
Inclusive tenemos testimonios de trabajadores que comentaron que fueron a varias maquiladoras y que todas les decían lo mismo, que no los podían contratar porque venían de un lugar donde había un conflicto.
A coalition of American and Mexican unions asked the Biden administration to sanction the company under the USMCA for blacklisting strikers. But this time, the administration did not take action.
At the end of the day, the community of Burlington, Iowa, the surrounding communities need follow-through. My members at the plant that are currently working right now, we need the follow-through from our elected officials.
Victor and his colleagues have now been on strike for over a year and a half.
Resenting those workers isn't going to change a damn thing. It's just like a sea worker, you know, in a plant here. They're going after the low wages. We need to be down there helping them.
As Donald Trump enters the White House again, a consensus seems to be building that the U.S. needs a bolder trade policy to protect good-paying jobs. But what that means in practice is very much up for grabs.
What we need is President Trump to step in and say, no more jobs are leaving. We need you to step up and do what you promised.
Trump has promised tariffs on companies like Deere that offshore jobs.
We're putting a 200% tariff on everything that you want to sell into the United States, so that if I win, John Deere is going to be paying a 200%.
Not a big fan of Donald Trump, but yeah, kudos.
Tariffs make it more expensive to offshore, so they could give workers more leverage, not only to keep their jobs, but to make them better. But the other side of keeping good jobs in the U.S. is investing in them. If tariffs are not combined with government support for high-wage industries, they can only help workers so much. And Trump has promised to end the Biden administration's investments in new American manufacturing jobs. So far, Trump's tariff threat has not dissuaded John Deere. It's continuing to move jobs from Iowa to a new factory it's building in Mexico, scheduled to be up and running in 2026. How the Trump administration will respond remains to be seen.
Let's start new. Let's build in protections for United States workers. Whether they're union or not, we got to have protections in our trade laws. They need to put the worker first.